Hello and welcome to another episode of Unicorner, this time with Claus, whom many people probably don't know, but after this episode they will know a lot. But maybe you could shortly introduce yourself, Claus, in your role.
Yes, thank you for having me, Niels. I'm the, designer, head of brand, head of delightful brands in Umbraco. So I'm doing the design for Umbraco, and based on Umbraco's mission, vision and values, I'm sort of like developing the design, how we move forward and what we want to look like and what we do.
And that's super exciting because right now I think it's fair to say that we don't look like we want to. And that's why you came on board early this year.
Yeah.
It's also the most complicated setup for Unicorner ever, and we'll get back to why. There's stuff all over the place, but before we do that, tell a little bit about your background. Where do you come from? What is a design guy?
I've been working with design for almost 2 decades, so I'm sort of like old in the business, and I've been in at TV2 for 11 years. That's the broadcast company here in Denmark, doing their designs for all their channels, and been in tech before that, and after that I was in 2 years in San Francisco doing also startup and at HTC, their design department. So I've been around, did a lot of things from very small pixels to huge banner size from for Umbraco.
And we are so happy to have you here. So your role in the company, why on earth would we even want to have an internal design person in Umbraco? Why not just hire a design agency?
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's so easy. You call up someone, say, hey, we want to look good.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, they send an invoice and some mock-ups.
Yeah. I've been working with a lot of companies, and what makes sense to me is have an internal design or creative department, whatever, creative person that sort of like knows the brand and understands the brand, understands the product, not least. So it's been a huge, for me, these 8 months I've been here, like research and sort of like get to know both the whole company as a culture and also the product. What does it do? What can it do? What are the possibilities and so forth? So it's like you always have to like grasp it all, and you also have to do that as an agency, but you stay inside the agency. You don't just deliver a design and then you say, here, give me your money, and then I'll leave it up to you to continue with this design. I think design is an evolving thing that needs to be cared about. And it's not just design, it's the brand as a company that needs to be cared about, and it needs to be nourished and also understood, not at least by management, who also like needs to know how this will affect the company as a business, because there's like, as I see it, there's if one pillar in this company lacks, it sort of like hurts the company a little bit. Yeah. If the business side is up and running very smoothly and the sales are going right, but the design stinks, then it's like, it's not really like an ecosystem that we want to have or do.
And you can actually say that was why I reached out to you. You actually brought some pretty cool slides where you did a design audit. I have them up at the screen here.
Okay. Yeah. I just did a quick visual audit of Umbraco as we look today. Sort of like, this is just.
We look like a telco. That was why I reached out to you.
Yeah.
It was actually my wife who said, I was so happy with the new website. I knew that it was a temporary website, but we just needed, we were stuck with what we had. And then I showed her the site, and she was like, you look like a telco. And I was like, oh dear, you're right again.
But I think at least it shows that we are a professional business, and I think that's also what Umbraco is today. It's like evolving, growing, and I think that's nice to see. There's consistency. It's not all across. That's also what I found out in the audit. It's not like also people use our brands in so many ways, and that's both. I think it's very. I have never been in a company where people just use your logo whatever way they want to use it. But I think there's something that's sort of like you feel free and you feel part of Umbraco, and that's important to keep that in mind as you continue doing a brand system or a brand design for Umbraco that also needs to open up, like open source it, like you contribute to you see the possibilities you have. You don't have a stale design that's just like you have these options, you have something to evolve upon also for designers or other inside the companies or outside the company for the community also to use it.
Yeah, because when we had our initial chats, I think it was in December last year, we had a lot of talks back and forward about this, and you came up with the idea of what if we could create an open design system.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out what it is. But basically the idea was I wanted a way to visually represent who we really are as a company, as a product, as a community. And what I found interesting when you started was one of the first tasks was like, let's see if we can quickly fix Code Garden.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Then I didn't have a lot of time since when I started until we the next slide there is about the personality that we talked about. It's important to keep the personality also inside a brand. But if you go to the next slide, it shows also that the brand identity or like identity for Code Garden was done in a way where like the idea was to make a modular system that could work for everybody. So that was some of the learnings that I got from Code Garden also, that we could use these blocks like blocks of code or like blocks like representing Umbraco, like some huge brick manufacturer that everybody knows. I think Umbraco is just like that. You pull stuff together, you pull people together, you get together, and you sort of build amazing stuff and inspire and also find out failures or new things. And I think that's also sort of like what this was built upon, like a modular system of bricks that sort of like gets together and makes more sense.
What was really cool about the work with Code Garden, it ended up taking much more time than expected, but also because you really got into what Umbraco was. I remember you coming down and you were really excited about, Umbraco was much more than just an organization. And we had the conversations, but then when Code Garden was actually running, that's really where you experienced this. And I was so happy to see at Code Garden that a lot of people noticed that there was a design that was not just beautiful but also made sense, and people started playing with the design. I think you have some. And
that's also like the inspiration for where Umbraco is going. It's the playfulness of the design, the use of the design that people actually did down at Code Garden. They sort of like they made their own shirts. They had you could see developer men ironing their own shirts, like
that was fantastic.
And then doing different kinds of illustrations with these blocks and shapes, so they can make their own customized shirt. I think that's an idea that also brings something to an open design system, that you have to like bring your own love to the project, your own passion to the design, and it not everybody is a designer, but I think most people know what they want, and if they have a set of tools that are like available for them to use in some certain kind of way, or like if you have a lot of colors, you can have shapes, you can have movements, you can have text, you can have like the tone of voice, the way we're saying things, and we had a lot of, they could sort of combine everything their own way, so make it personal.
And I mean, we talk about that people in the Umbraco community are curious and creative, and I think this really showed. And in the same way that with the Umbraco product, we're trying to empower people to do more than they would be able to do on their own by giving them a set of tools. I also think the design work that's in progress for not just the Code Garden identity, but also the Umbraco identity really shows that. I love how you're basically taking the values of both the company and the community and the product and actually trying to put that into a design. Yeah. And I guess that's why you brought some of this as well.
Yeah.
But maybe
it's a test. It's a demo. It's a live demo of
MVP. It's an MVP.
Yeah, that's also like it's not saying that we are going to be orange again, but why not? Why not make it one of the colors? I think that's also a huge tribute to the community. I'm not saying that it's gonna be orange, but at least it'll maybe be part of the palette that we're doing now. So we're doing we're expanding the way we look in both colors and illustrations, and also in movement and motion. So. And so you could, there's a lot of
I think before we get too much into this, we have two traditions at the Unicorn as well, and one of them is stories from the basement. So maybe if we take that first, and then we get back into this cut and paste.
What about hungry and friendly?
We can also we can take hungry and friendly. Okay, we take hungry and friendly.
Okay, friendly. Yeah, it's a tip, right? I'll just say, like we just talked about, and that they also mentioned previously, like Paul and Maiken, that Code Garden is something that blows your mind. It's something that you should attend to know Umbraco, what Umbraco is. Also, like you get to see the community, you get to meet real people. And talk to a lot of people, and especially for developers, it's like developers I know, I've seen on Twitter and everything. It's a community growing, and people are friendly to each other and friends with each other as well. So and the event is fantastic. So there's something for everybody, not just developers. It's also something for your mind. So I think go there, and it'll be that's my friendly tip.
I concur.
On the hungry part, it's not something that you don't know already. I'll just say that as you scale as a company, I've seen it so many times. People are scaling, and it's important to know what your culture is and keep your culture. And I think you're doing a great job. But it's also something to be aware of. That, and it's a tough thing because there's so many people, and now we're not so many people, but at least we are growing fast, and I think culture is important. It's not just ergonomic chairs and kale chips. It's more than that. It's a personal thing, and I think you should be aware and take care of it. So it's just it.
I promise. and with that, let's copy paste, or you brought a lot of.
I brought some of the colors that we are working with right now, or that I'm working with. Also, yes. Then you have also the system is around scaling, and also like you can see, it's like Umbraco. You have bricks, or you have like a puzzle that fits together. It's sort of like makes enormous sense to me. Like also like you saw at Code Garden, something that brings things together, like bricks or like shapes or like puzzles. It's going to be a huge part of the system, both in small sizes, maybe on the inside the logo or outside the logo, or how it's going to be represented. So these are just some of the colors that we're working with, but it could also be the way you use the blocks for different purposes to illustrate things. Like we had for Coke Garden, it could be used to also illustrate the way, let's say for example, an infinitive button is working or like how could its flexibility out of a box or whatever. It's up to imagination how you really want to use these things, and with a huge system like this, it's playful. Yep. And it can be used in package designs as well, and people could maybe do their own design for packaging, and so there's version 8 coming in.
You shouldn't present this to me. I'll start play already. Oh, you can't see it.
Okay, so it's basically we have a lot of also to illustrate further. It's like Umbraco in the cloud. It's you only need like a couple of shapes to make the cloud work. So let's say that's Umbraco in the cloud.
And then the screenshot comes in.
Again.
And I destroy your beautiful design with a hand.
It's a unicorn pushing the clouds.
No, so jokes aside.
Yeah, we also, because this is just a system of basic shapes that can be used in several ways if the system are set up right. Or but we can continue like this. So it's a starry night. With Umbraco. No, it's this is just fun and
no, but it is fun
and trying out stuff. So, but basically, this is also what designers do. They play a lot around with trying to figure out how this design could illustrate best what we wanted to say, and also make it playful to use and to play with for people and other designers or developers.
And I think that's super important. It's also one of the things we talked about, right? That we wanted not to be a design manual, but we actually wanted to be a sort of the open design system. A thing where there's not a design police coming, but more a tool to inspire people.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the community. You actually had some. You had some pretty cool ideas about how the community could be using this.
Yeah, as part of if you make a package.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, or whatever your icons, whatever you like put together your own things, like we saw on from the photos from Coke Garden, people using it, and there's one making a bird for his girlfriend because she loved birds, so she was working with that. So it's fun to see how people actually use it, or it was like a coffee cup or whatever. It could be illustrated, but this is just the basic like design system. On top of that, we also have the way we communicate stuff. It's also a lot of like we communicate a lot with words, and the way you sort of like we have like our mission, vision, values. So it's also something about being a delightful digital experience, making Umbraco friendly, and friendly is one of our values that is so strong. That's also something that is a huge part of this design. It's going to be a friendly design, both in color-wise and the way you can use it. So that's sort of like the openness in this.
Yeah, and what you actually had here in analog papers is actually some of the color palette.
Yeah, it's at least close to what I'm working with right now. So Yeah, because friendly is something that we want to, is sort of like, if you should say that we have a personality, I would say friendly is something that I not only think is genuine, but it's something that I haven't experienced in the degree as in Umbraco, at being at Umbraco. People are friendly, and it's not just a style or trend. It's something that comes from within, and also from the leadership in Umbraco. It's something that inspires people to be friendly to other people, also in the community, and to just assume positive intent. And I think that's very strong and something we should nourish even more. Also the way we communicate through design, illustrations, key visuals, images, and on the different channels that we are on. So that's gonna be some task to like roll it all out and see if we can sort of like nail our personality. But it's not done overnight, that's for sure. So that's also why like research and prototype, test, and then sort of like trying to implement the stuff. If it fails, we'll just do the round again and then make it right. So it's not said that this is set in stone, or this is going to be my personal project. It's something that we should all be proud of or use.
Yeah, and also you are deeply passionate about when we have our talks. You're deeply passionate about trying to get all those values that you felt in the community and into the design. And I think, I mean, maybe we were playing here, but this is much more Umbraco than I've ever seen. And I mean, this is not the final design. This is just
this is a cardboard demo session.
But it's so fun when we have our talks, and you came up. I love you coined this idea with you know, basically what we are all trying to do day in and day out is basically adding love to the product, to Code Garden, to the community, to sharing. Also, and I think the community leaders out there are doing the same. And you just came up with this very simple but super cool idea for the overall design.
Because it's also going back to CMS, and what is CMS about? It's also about what is the final product, and it's also about how do you come from a blank page, like a clean slate, and to something that's very successful. You need to be passionate about it. You also need to add love, and it's just about adding love. It's adding love to the product. It's adding love to the way you do things. It's adding love and your passion to the way you are friendly towards other people. So I think that's sort of like, if you say a brand system design philosophy, it's like built on top of that. So.
Yeah, and as the Code Garden agency, and I can see that we've synced clothing today, but and also as you showed, it's basically just blocks, but it ends up basically being love, and that's basically what we're trying to do with the product. I mean, it can sound so cheesy, but it's so right. I mean, it is what we are doing, and it is what the community are doing.
Yeah, I see the developers also like they strive to make it a better product every day. It's also about improving, contributing, sharing, and all those kinds of things. You can sort of like, what are the big like theme around this? So I think that it fits very good into a design system. So
before we end, where does it go from here? Where are we right now?
Right now, I'm also talking to actually a cardboard illustrator in France because she makes like beautiful. So she'll be using some of the shapes that we have in the system just to illustrate some more points of what Umbraco is that I don't have the ability to. I can illustrate, but she's much stronger than me.
So the stuff she's doing, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm trying her out right now, and I'm also continuing on the whole system of design. How can we use it? How can it be scaled to different to our website, we're talking about the tour of Umbraco needs some love. So I'm sort of like starting with adding love to different kinds of projects.
Beautiful. And on that note, we need the final tradition. So I'm just gonna roll this one. Because the only place that's more messy than the table was in the beginning is our basement.
Yeah.
You found something down there.
It's actually being cleaned up
Oh, no.
a little bit, so it's hard to find anything messy right now. But
the culture is eroding.
yeah, I tried even going to your box that say don't touch and look in it to see if I could find something cheesy. But I found this, and it's a wig.
It's a wig.
Yeah, and I know there's a story around it, I think, but
isn't it Per's wig?
I think it's Per's wig.
It's the Teresa wig. So
Yeah.
you know,
tell
we
the
have
story?
at Code Garden we have this crazy bingo, and 2 years ago we decided to do a Trump Theresa May theme, and I think Per definitely took one for the team by saying he was game at being Teresa, and this was his wig. He tried several, but he ended up with this one, and he looked, it suited him in a very scary way. You can find pictures on Flickr.
And he did a porcelain set, right?
Yes. Yeah, the porcelain set, that was one of the prizes, and he insisted that he could do it himself.
Yeah.
And he found a way to sort of print something, and then it could transfer to the porcelain, and it didn't work. So last minute we came up with the idea that he would just pretend that there was logos on, and then just drop it in front of the person winning it, so it would smash to pieces. So. Yep.
A good story.
Yep.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I mean, looking forward to, of course, not overnight, but when we sit here in a year, I'm pretty sure that we look much less like a telco and much more like something where there's been added love, not only to the code we do, but also to the way we look.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely amazing.
Great.
And that was another episode of the Unicorner. As always, reach out on Twitter for comments or write comments down here. Remember to subscribe and like, and remember to keep adding love. It's fantastic. See you next time.